Here's an overview of my Morse code implementation using an Arduino microcontroller. So this is the Arduino IDE, and I have my Arduino micro connected to my computer using USB 2.0 to micro USB serial connection. I can open a serial console using this feature right here under the Tools tab. I think I actually just closed it. So here I can send strings to the microcontroller. So that's how I communicate what I want the microcontroller to drive the LED, the Morse code signal. So a little overview of the implementation. I set just a basic time unit that's going to be used through the Morse code implementation, kind of how long the dits and the das last for. I chose LED number 2, or output pin number 2 to drive my LED. And these are where I'm setting up global variables for the application. So here's my sort of lookup data structure. It's a static character array, and the A's and the B's represent whether it's a dot or a dash. So A is a dot and B is a dash. So for the letter A, it's AB because the letter AB in Morse code is a dot and a dash. And I carry that throughout the rest of the alphabet. And here's the same thing for numbers at the end. So in the setup function here, I chose my LED and turned it to an output, turned it to output mode. And this is defined at the beginning that I showed you earlier. And this is just a system-wide macro. So this is the main loop of the application. It uses the serial module to read bytes until you reach the return line. And it puts it into an input string. And then I have the Arduino print over serial connection that it's sending a Morse code signal. And then it calls this Morse function with that input string that I type in down here in the serial monitor message window. So moving down, what the Morse function does is it loops through the whole input string. So for each letter, if it finds a space, it does the right delay for between word spacing. But if it gets a letter, it uses this get Morse code helper function for a specific Morse code letter in your input string. So what that does is it takes that letter, it does some input validation on it, and then it uses that data structure, that array I showed at the beginning, to look up that letter, what it is in Morse code. So this function here will return one of these strings. It's really just an array of strings. And then in that Morse function, make sure that it actually returns something first, and then it loops through one of these strings. So if the input letter was a K, it would be BAB. So it would loop through. If it's an A, it calls the dit function, and if it's a B, it calls the da function, which is kind of like dot and dash. So what the dit function does is it turns the LED on, waits the required time period for what a dit is, and then it turns it back off, and it waits again, because there are waits in between letters as well as words. So when that's finished, you know a letter is finished, and then there's an additional time delay between letters. So that's what this is doing here. So that completes one string parse. And then it'll just loop through this forever, looking for input strings and driving them with the LED. So a little demonstration here. If I type hello world, it doesn't matter the case sensitivity, because in that section I have down here where I'm doing input parsing, I'm converting all of the characters to uppercase right here at this line. So if it is a letter, make it uppercase and then 0 index it. And it's 0 index because I want the letter A to be index 0, letter B to be index 1, and so on. So I type hello world, which will send it, and you'll see the LEDs. I'll add another video at the end here, and you'll see it.